If Scotland decides to be independent, how would we start a new country? Well, 18 months before a referendum, we should start recruiting an expert team to lead the work. With about a year to go, we should publish the full plans for independence and hold a constitution convention to prepare an interim constitution. These are what should be put to the public in a vote. With 6 months to go, we should publish a full implementation plan to explain how all the work will get done. Then, of course, we need to win the support of the people of Scotland in a referendum. Setting up an independent Scotland will take 3 years, so we must begin immediately. First, we should seek legal personality, which simply means Scotland could begin entering into international negotiations and agreements. There must be transition plans which ensure that everyday government keeps functioning, with Holyrood and Westminster continuing their current roles over the 3 years. Then we should set up a national commission to do all the actual work of creating systems and institutions and negotiating on Scotland's behalf. It will employ the staff who will do the work and must have very strong project management procedures. And it must be able to borrow to finance all the work. The Commission's first job should be to set up the digital currency that banks use to create bank accounts. And since negotiations with the rest of the UK should begin within 6 months, it must start early to develop a negotiating strategy. Another early task is to begin the work with updating all of Scotland's public sector IT systems and building any new ones we'll need. This is the time to begin a big process of national participation so that everyone in Scotland has a chance to be involved in writing the final constitution. This will take 2 years. A number of big jobs which will take time should also start now, like building a Scottish Defence Force, new tax and social security systems, and beginning to set up a Borders and Customs Agency. 6 months in, it is time to start negotiations with the rest of the UK and also start initial talks with international organisations like the United Nations. Getting towards the end of the first transition year, the National Commission will be working with the banks to help them start set up customer accounts in a new Scottish currency and also beginning to create a central bank and creating a new digital payment system. It is time to start setting up new government departments and expanding existing ones to take on the new responsibilities. A Foreign Office is a priority as it must start setting up a consular network around the world. Before the end of the first transition year, we will need to hold a political conference to involve all the parties to come to agreement on a number of issues which require decisions. By the start of the second transition year, banks will begin offering bank accounts in pound Scots, so as many of Scotland's taxes as possible should be payable in the new currency. And the central bank should now be building up the nation's foreign currency reserves. This is the time to start transferring the energy system to Scottish control by setting up an organisation to manage the grid and a regulator to protect the interests of customers. The early part of the second transition year is also when we should start setting up a national broadcaster, a media regulator, and to start to negotiate a commercial contract with the BBC to get access to its programming. By this point, we should already be in discussions with EFTA and the EU on trade arrangements, though proper negotiations on EU membership couldn't begin until we were fully independent. Later in the year, it should gradually become compulsory to pay taxes in the new currency. It's also the time to start putting in place a humane immigration system. By the midpoint of year 2, we need to start separating the civil service to create a wholly Scottish service and to start recruiting the many new staff needed. There are some statutory regulatory bodies we also need to set up at this time. Later in the year, we need to commission the new banknotes and coins and begin updating vending machines to accept them. We should also be commissioning Scottish passports. While final border arrangements will depend on negotiations, it is time to start building the technical infrastructure which will help us manage our border but make it effortless to cross. Getting towards the end of the second year, the Foreign Office will have been set up and it should start to look at all the UK's international treaties to see which ones Scotland wishes to stay a signatory to. By the start of the last transition year, we should aim to have completed the 18 months of negotiation with the rest of the UK. Much of the rest of the year is about finishing the many work strands that are underway. The constitution writing process should be nearly finished by now, so a new proposed constitution must be drafted. By the middle of the year, all the new systems, including the border arrangements, should be in place and should shadow the UK systems they will replace to enable troubleshooting. With a few months to go before Independence Day, the new constitution should then be agreed in a referendum. This might be an opportunity to resolve some other controversial issues, like who should be head of state and whether we rejoin the EU. With 3 months to go, almost everything should be more or less complete. It will be mandatory to pay all taxes in the new currency, and the process of issuing banknotes and coins will begin. By now, we'll know our share of any debts that we've agreed to pay to the rest of the UK and how much the National Commission has borrowed to complete all the work. These sums should be added together and then refinanced to form Scotland's national debt. And then, well, that's it. It's Independence Day. It's time to celebrate taking our place on the world stage, secure in the knowledge that we've done the best possible job of building a new country for all of Scotland's people.